Hey everyone, welcome to the Tuesday, November 14th SIG release meeting. My name is Jeremy. I'll be the host today. This meeting is covered by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, so please be mindful of the things you say. And this meeting will also be recorded and will be available on YouTube later on. Does anybody want to volunteer to be our note taker today? If not, I can grab notes too.
Yeah, I can also do it.
Okay, group effort. All right, so with that, we will move into our reoccurring topics first, and we'll open the floor to anybody that is new and would like to introduce themselves. Just go ahead and come off of mute, and you can tell us who you are, what you're interested in SIG release, what you'd like to do, and we'll welcome you. Okay. If you want to introduce yourself in chat, feel free to do that as well. Next up, sub-project updates. We can start with the patch releases. There won't be official patch releases this month, as the schedule indicates, because of KubeCon and stuff. So folks who are looking for cherry picks and stuff will still be working to have a patch release next month, and we'll get things in around the time for that. OBS packages. I don't think Marco is here to give us any updates on that, so we can follow up and try to get an async update on those things. Supply chain security things. Adolfo, do you have any updates on that?
Well, that was one of the points that I wanted to bring up. We had this big discussion during the contributor summit during KubeCon, and it was like I feel an interesting discussion because we had, Jeremy led it, and we were discussing what would it take for us to be able to, for example, issue VEX documents. So VEX is a format that lets you better inform downstream consumers of your releases if they're affected by a vulnerability or not. In order to be able to issue VEX documents, and obviously not having one person just writing the documents by hand, you need to have lots of supporting processes and information available so that you can issue that VEX. So, for example, one of the things that we should try to improve is our SBOMs. One of the things that we should really try to push towards unification and better conclusion is the security feed that SIG Security has been working on. And so my feeling, I don't know what you felt, Jeremy, but my feeling was that so everybody has an interesting, so all of the participants that day are interested in using these documents, but we need to do some improvements in order to make them useful. So it's probably time for a refresh. There are some of our projects which are still ongoing, like for example, the provenance attestations are moving slower than the actual specs. So we're moving slower than Salsa, for example, is changing things, changing processes, changing expectations of people who issue those documents. But things like the SBOM are pretty mature by now. And some of the work that we did there kind of pioneered SBOMs. So, but as a result, it now it looks a little bit old-fashioned, I would say. So there are a bunch of improvements that we can do there. That's one. And the other one was a discussion on maybe having a unified security feed that could start when the SRC, the Security Response Committee, informs us of a new CVE in Kubernetes, and then bootstrap the whole feed from that information. My feeling is that would be the best. Right now, the prototype that is running, the way it works is that there is a process that will I think the way it works is it monitors GitHub for
Yep.
issues that are tagged with a specific flag or a specific tag, and then they build the information from there.
Yep.
But there are several problems with that. The first one is if you want to give an automated a feed that people can use to automate the processes, you need to wait until it has been publicly disclosed. So there's no way of giving, for example, the partners that get early warning on vulnerabilities and access to the feed before the issues are posted out there. And we have the information anyway, because the SRC is already producing the YAMLs that we use for the release notes and such, so we could do that. That will require some more discussion with SIG security, I guess, particularly with PJ, who had led the project in the past. But it's something that I will, if possible, I would like to start having the conversations before the end of the year with them.
You're in luck, because I mentioned this conversation to Rita, and she had actually already opened an issue in KK to talk about creating VEX documents, because the SRC has been discussing this topic. I think that's why Micah came to the unconference session as well. So there is a Kubernetes issue to do this. And she has started to write a doc. I don't think she has shared it yet. But we are going to discuss it at the SIG security meeting on Thursday this week.
Okay.
To tick off discussions. And I'm sure there will be lots of follow-up things to go with that. But I think it's definitely something that a lot of folks are interested in. For the CVEs we have today, but also for the the crazy, this Go vulnerability this Go dependency is vulnerable, but Kubernetes isn't vulnerable from it. Scanners are still complaining about it. Selfishly, internally, we have that problem, and it's super annoying. So Rita is interested in seeing that go forward from the SRC side, and I think PJ was interested from the SIG security side. He was in the unconference session too, I think towards the end. So we can report back if you can make it, if anybody can make it. The SIG security meeting on Thursday is I think it's at 10 Mountain Time. I think, can't remember.
Okay, yeah, I'll be there for sure. And yeah, if anybody, I mean, we have most of the usual gang here, but anybody who's new and who's interested in these subjects is also welcome. And don't be afraid to show up, ask questions. We will be super happy to have you in this joint effort.
Right. Any questions on that topic? All right. Don't also see Carlos or Marco here, so we'll skip the LFX update for now. Unless anybody.
Sorry, Jeremy. I just fixed my mic. I had a quick question for Adolfo.
Yeah, go for it.
Have you had recent feedback of the usability from users, from users who are looking at or what we're providing from SIG release, and have you found any users using this, kind of giving you any upstream feedback of the usability of the VEX, to make things easier? Because I think that's one of the things when I try to introduce internally is some of the usability has been challenging, I think, for as the feedback I got initially. So just kind of curious, if you're, because ideally we're providing something that's simple and easy to consume, and it sounds like that's what you're trying to work towards with closing the gap with providing the document in this manner. But
do you mean about the tools, or?
Yeah, the tools itself, and overall, with the goal of what you want to do with maybe making it easier with using the VEX, and someone can easily know oh yeah, I'm vulnerable.
I haven't gotten any recent feedback. No, I mean we've got some issues open on BOM now, which is because some people are starting to use it, I guess. But that's about it. But I mean, if there's anything we can do, certainly. Yeah, just curious if you're getting any user feedback, and if not, then trying to see how we can amplify that as well, the usability of it. Yeah. Just something I forgot to mention. As part of this modernization, one of the things that I want to do is get to work on the image promoter fix the signatures, but also to support more kinds of artifacts attached to the images. So I'm gonna try to make that my #1 weekend priority if I can, to get that fixed. Things for me at work are kind of stabilizing a little bit, so I may be able to get some time for that.
Marco and I were chatting about that yesterday. I put this in the chat, but Marco and I were chatting about that yesterday, and I started a Google Doc with things we could improve in the promoter. So I'll share that with you so you can collaborate too. All right. We'll hand it over to the release team now.
Hey everyone, we are in week 11th of 129 cycle. Few updates. Beta 0 cut is scheduled for, I believe, this Thursday, 16th of November, and we have started a thread in release management, so we have people's availability there. Thank you, Veronica, Jim, Mark. Test freezes today. I've sent out an email to the dev mailing list, just informing folks about what test freeze actually means and giving a heads up on what do we really want to merge at this point and not merge. A few other milestones we have for today and this week. We have our docs deadline for this week. I think we are doing good there. Only 2 docs PR are open or work in progress right now, and I believe we'll be closing one of them, and the other one I'm already in discussion with the owning SIGs. I'm talking about a work in progress PR for SIG Windows. I'll just check with them if we really want a doc change for that. Otherwise, they also have opened up a blog PR, and we might move ahead with that. So we are doing good on docs deadline. I still have to gather some updates for major themes deadline and final draft for release notes, but those are also happening today. Um, and finally, we had a discussion during our in-person SIG release meeting, and a lot of action items very much related to release team came out of that. And I'll start scheduling a few dedicated follow-up discussion for them in the upcoming SIG release meetings, or maybe also add them to our end of release cycle retrospective meeting. So that's pretty much all we have for today from the release team side.
Any questions for release engineering, or sorry, for release team? Okey-dokey. Next up on the agenda was the item from Sasha and Lori to look at the roadmap and vision and do some reprioritization for 2024. Sasha, do you want to share anything as we talk through that? I can bring the roadmap up and we can look at it. How do you want to approach that?
Yeah, we can just have a look at the roadmap right now. Lori is unfortunately not on the call, but I think the main idea is just to revisit this roadmap and also reprioritize the items we want to work on in the next year. I think we have still a bunch of work left on the OBS part. We also decided in KubeCon Amsterdam that we want to focus every main effort as a dedicated project board. And the dedicated project board for the Salsa level 3 is empty right now, but so I think it's a great opportunity to put everything we have as rough ideas, which are also coming from KubeCon, into issues and make them workable chunks. The main question to Lori would be now how we want to do it, maybe by using a dedicated session or something like this. But in the end, the main question is, are those 2 efforts our highest priority ones we want to like to work on in the next year? But I also see from various KubeCon discussions that it is one requirement to the Kubernetes release tooling itself is to build Kubernetes releases within not only within private repositories, but also within custom environments, like companies using the tooling to like build Kubernetes and publish those artifacts to their own destinations. So everything could be more configurable. I think this is one of the main efforts where we could also help downstream consumers to use our tools, which then would give us more feedback, right? But the question is, do we want to do with it? Probably, maybe as a third priority list, but we are already, I would not say struggling, but it's already challenging to get one thing done at a time. And we should like agree on something we would like to work on next year and beyond. We did this in the past for 2022. And I think it was successful because it provides us a good overview about what a SIG is actually doing. And it's like the most top level thing we would like to work on. Everything just down below can be organized in project boards, issues, and stuff like that.
So I have a question on the Salsa compliance thing, since we're looking at the board here. Adolfo, has that stabilized enough that you think we could make significant progress, or is that something that's still somewhat in flux? And if we devoted effort to that right now, it would be not necessarily the best use of time.
Yeah. When we showed up the Salsa tester that we wrote in, where was this, Valencia or Detroit? The Salsa 1.0 spec was still being finished. And then I thought that was going to be like the best moment to put our time into that. But then some discussion started around, the Salsa, like somewhat related to the completeness of the Salsa attestations that you provide. So there were some discussions, some consensus on what you want to see in those attestations. I think we're in a good place to provide a complete enough Salsa attestation for Kubernetes. But now, so right now we could jump back into to finish that work. The first thing that there are two big missing pieces. The first one is moving the Salsa tester to Salsa 1.0, which shouldn't be that hard. And the second one, we were missing a way to query Brow to get information out of the builds that it runs. Mohammed Ali from, well, mostly Kate Infra, but everywhere, he wrote a demo program that can get that information for Knative. So we had some discussions on just stealing that and bringing it to our tool. He was fine with it, but then all of this, uncertainty around the final form of Salsa came in, so everybody kind of left it. But maybe it's a good time to retake.
Adolfo, would that fit into the signing release artifacts epic somehow?
Yeah, exactly. So
okay.
Yeah, if we were to if we were to redefine an epic, I mean, not related to GEPS or whatever, but if we were what do we want to see? I would like to take all of the work that we did in the past, 2 years or so, modernize what's needed, ensure that we complete what's left, and finally make sure that everything plays well together. So those are the three main goals that I would like to accomplish next year regarding this stuff.
Yeah, sounds like a good thing. So Laurie, you're welcome to the meeting. Just as a short summary, we still have those 3 main work in progress items where we made best progress on the lab and RPM packaging side for now. And we would also like to work on the Salsa stuff in the future, which is the project board is empty. So we have not started with it from the Salsa level 3 perspective, but there are great ideas about how to enhance it. But as Adolfo mentioned, modernizing and focusing on a little bit more flexibility and ease of use is probably one of the good bright stars we can work on. My biggest question would be now, how do we want to do it to be able to start working on it from the beginning of next year?
Oh, well, since I'm out of the loop, going on a year plus, I would need to talk to some of you to get up to speed on what you've done, what you still have to do, and some of the general ideas that you want to take forward. And then, are there ways to validate those ideas with users? Are the users primarily within this group, or are they outside of the group, or is it a mix?
I would say it's a mix.
Okay.
But for example, I had requests on making the whole build process for Kubernetes more flexible in general.
Mhm,
This wouldn't
mhm.
fit in any of those three, but the question is, do we realistically have the capacity to work on this in the next year?
How's your contributor retention and growth? Are people showing up, new people? Is work proceeding in a fairly flowy fashion?
I mean, we're making progress, but we
Yeah.
probably slowed down when compared to the initial effort or when we initially started this roadmap. But
Sure.
yeah,
I
judging
would,
from the past, which is probably also not a good thing, but judging from the past, I would say just 1 or 2 topics is totally enough for us to work on.
yeah, not stretching yourself too thin is always a good idea. It helps with focus. It gives people fewer things to pick to do, which means that the likelihood of them doing the few things they do pick goes up. So my suggestion would be if we do some dedicated conversations about each of these topics, we figure out what are our hypotheses and the ideas that we have today, talk through those, and then talk about how we can do 2 things. Collect user data to figure out what's most important, what are the biggest pain points and biggest needs. We can do that in a number of ways, whether it's a mixture of interviews or a survey, whatever we figure out we have time for. Then we use that data to help organize the work in order of priority. And then we would kick out anything that we thought might be a negotiable, any task or element that would be negotiable, or we can think about it later. And then I think there would probably be a couple of onboarding new contributors, getting contributors involved ideas we will want to kick around on this. And this is such an interesting topic, and it's one that is really on people's minds. I have a hard time thinking there aren't people in the world that would be interested in picking up a quick task to get some experience on this. We just have to figure out how to scope these issues so that we can actually hand them off to people to complete.
Yeah, I personally know a
Digging
bunch
deeper.
of people who are interested in working on small dedicated chunks. I mean, we could also say, okay, we just define 2, our topmost priorities, let's say 2, which we can work on by the next year, and the other ones, we just outline them in a basic fashion so that we are aware that they still need refinement, but there are still some chunks which we can actually start working on.
Yeah, and even if the SIG as a whole wants to split into 2 groups or can split into 2 groups and move forward on each of them, like personal preference might lead someone to be more interested in one topic over the other, then that could be done. But I think we just, with a little bit of planning, to coordinate all of that.
Cool.
It would be necessary.
Yeah, that was the main idea of having everything in a project board, like every topic in a dedicated project board.
I think that, just I wonder how we can collect enough data this time around to really get even more rigorous about not doing things, like so that we just reduce the number of things on the path to the outcome. That's what I'm really interested in at the moment. Who we could talk to, how we would talk to them, just figuring out the process for that.
Yeah, I think that would be ideal if we could get data about who is consuming these artifacts to know which things make sense. Like, is anybody looking at the salsa data? Does it make sense to put effort into that if nobody's consuming
Right.
it right now?
Yeah, that kind of question.
It's pretty easy for us to build surveys that hit contributors. I
Yeah.
think it's more difficult to get those out properly to the other folks that might be consuming these things. Like we can engage the contributor comms folks who are great at helping build surveys. Like you can submit a GitHub issue now and they'll build a survey for you. I think getting it to the right channels is a more interesting question. We're looking at the same thing for the LTS working group right now. Like how do we get it to actual end users rather than it's just sending it to the dev list and the places where it's going to be Kubernetes contributors and not necessarily the folks that are consuming.
Right. Is the CNCF user community an option?
Yeah, I think that would be an option.
Okay.
We just
'Cause-
formed the CNCF end user tab, which I'm a member, and I think that's one of the goals is really to drive
Yeah.
more feedback from our end user community.
That's great. It's quite needed and will be valuable. So maybe they would be able to recommend it, maybe on a smaller scale, like not blasting all of their audience, although I don't know how big their audience is, but we can talk to them and figure out what we could do.
Do you think we should do that prior to breaking any of these down and getting people to work on things? Or should we do that? And then if this data shows that we should do something else, we can reprioritize.
I think it partially depends on what's possible. Ideally, we would have the data as part of the planning process to then just kind of address it as we shape those goals. But if we can't get it because of people being busy, then, we do what we can.
Yeah.
I guess how you can structure the work to not do the wrong thing is like there are going to be quite obvious, just objective or almost objective pain points or needs that you have to take care of. So if you put those at the beginning, you have to do them, and then it can allow for time to then get that survey going and get data. And with all of the other ambiguous, uncertain stuff, then we can manage it that way.
I think we definitely know for sure that we need to fix the image promoter.
So that would be a good topic for how to do that. So like if we had a conversation where we trace the flow of how it currently works, or if somebody already has a doc that does that, then you even better, you can just gather around and go step by step. And if there's people using the image promoter that would be able to talk through like where they get stuck, where it's confusing, if there's user docs attached to it, like we could try to follow them and see where we get stuck, take all of that input and then plot it in a visual. I'm friends with Mira, so we could then see like, okay, here's where the biggest impacts are right now. If there's a rock at the beginning of the process, you want to make sure you can remove that rock to make the rest of the process possible without a lot of pain. Things like that you can find out when you map flows step by step. And also like, thinking about what's the outcome at the end. Is it clear by the time the person goes through that process with the image promoter? Do they have one goal they would want to achieve, or there are multiple goals? Like what is it trying to do?
Yeah, I started a doc on that on my way back from KubeCon. I'll share it.
Is that intrinsic to this also work? Like is it a foundational component for the rest of this work?
Yes.
Okay. So then I guess that seems like an easy bounded topic to talk about. So I would propose a conversation about that where it's just focusing on end to end. How does it work? What's difficult? What's unclear? Where are the pain points?
I guess so. There's like a few barriers of entry to work on that. And it's not everybody has the knowledge on let alone the process, but also on the code base of the tool.
Mhm.
It's not easy to test. That's one of the things that I would like to change. So it's not
Mhm.
not easy to test locally the changes that you do. Plus, once you, I don't know, it touches on a very delicate, like a very important piece of the project. So it's having something wrong there could have like some nasty consequences.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's not we work in that code base. I think it's we start from scratch and we can bring over goodness, but it's at this point, I don't know, in the chat, Arno said fix. We need a revamp. I think that, and Adolfo said burn it. I think that one is one that we need to start from ground zero, and we need to make it testable. We need to make it something that people could come into and help us contribute to. So we need to start with a lot of documentation to make sure we understand what the process should look like and what the problems are today. So we have clear understanding of like where the pitfalls are and what things we need to overcome. That's what I tried to start capturing in the doc that I'm writing.
So it sounds like what would be quite helpful is to take the current version, do like a retrospective on it. You know, what's problematic, what doesn't work at all, never worked, what works kind of. Just brain dump all that we can with an eye toward, okay, with the new version, what problems will it address? Like, what's the new design gonna aim to overcome? How do you take your existing bits and pieces that are good and bring them into the new version? Is that doable? Is it more work or less work? You know, those kinds of considerations. And then I think really, like, what does this thing set out to do? And making sure that it does that core, solves that core problem really well before it adds on anything else. So just getting its core function really airtight, easy, secure, stable, reliable, and then designing the doc around that plan. So then it's very clear like how it will work to everyone here. Then the design considerations, and then the harder part is like breaking that down into the work that people can actually take on and do. Like, is it going to be better if a small group or even one person tries to write a draft or prototype just to get it going? Like, that's when you can decide what makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it all depends on, do we want to retake on a full rewrite or not?
Yeah, that's a very important question.
And because it's so, especially for getting extra help, the ways of, you know, maybe building a wider contributor base to the project is completely different if we want to raise new contributors to work on the existing tool or on a new one. So I'm not sure. So it's
Yeah.
we need to do, probably not, won't get made today, but
yeah, when you have more like detailed information insight, then you can really see, okay, this is going to be too much work. And then, you know, then you go to your plan B, which is, well, no, rewriting is too hard. Is it a monolith?
yes.
Okay. Has anyone here broken down a monolith before?
Yeah, I think we don't have to decide that right now. I think one of the sessions, we just have to put that topic into one session of our roadmap, and then we can also dive further the main question, how the architecture should look like to the next year, because that is where the work already starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
I
at
would
least
keep it.
having an
Okay.
issue or something like this where one or two people can start working on would be great, right?
Mhm. I would keep that out of the roadmap. That's more of a thing to do, like a technical job to be done. It will support a roadmap goal, but it won't necessarily be its own goal, unless it's strictly providing outcomes on its own, but it didn't sound like that. It sounded like it's part of a landscape of things working together to deliver an outcome. Is it that?
It's a
Part of a
fundamental,
set.
I think it's a fundamental tool for the release process.
But it has to work together with other tools in the release process to deliver any kind of outcome, right? Or does it deliver things on its own? That's
Yeah, I mean, it's consuming outputs from other parts. And
yeah. So in that case, I would, for now, treat it as supportive of an outcome, not an outcome itself. And then think about, whatever you do with this, like what outcome does it need to help the team achieve better, faster, more reliable? Maybe it's a set of outcomes, that's fine too. But like we can figure out what the biggest problem in this thing is. If it's the risk, because it's not tested easily, that could be the number one problem. If it's docs being part of it, we figure out where the gaps are and fix them. It's probably going to be multiple things, but we can bucket those elements of work. So I'm happy to meet people whenever, still in Germany, just farther south. You can do a doodle, get going. If you want to have this all done before the holidays so that you can start in January, works for me. We can make sure everything is public by putting spreadsheets on the channel for people to sign up to the session that they want to join. And then we send out the doodle accordingly and get everything scheduled that way.
that sounds good to me.
Cool. And then it'd be good to have a tech lead to code drive each of these sessions because you all know much more about the details and it's really like your work more, I'm just helping along. Or, they can also have two technical people, whatever. I think probably two is good because then it's like, if someone's out, then another person is there. Yeah.
Sounds good. So do we want to create a Slack thread for each of those, let's call it 4 items, and then we just have a loose list of people interested, create a doodle, stuff like that, and then we just formalize it into any other tool we would like to have.
I think it's your 2 roadmap items that were displayed earlier, right? Those are the broad themes. And then there's some of the sub-themes that came out during the conversation. Is that?
I mean, I still see 4.
Yeah,
we can discuss it in Slack.
Yeah.
How many we would like to have in the end.
Okay.
All right, we are just about out of time. Do we want to discuss anything else?
I have
in that vein?
one.
Yeah, go for it.
So, so just to give you an update, during on the hallway tracking during KubeCon, me and Carlos were approached by the CNCF specifically by Eddie Knight from Sonatype. He was involved in running an event called the Cloud Native Security Slam that ended on KubeCon. And as part of that project, what it did was incentivize projects to improve their security posture by giving out rewards and prizes. And when they finished the Cloud Native Security Slam, they were left with several $1,000s that they need to spend before the end of the year. So we started like running around, getting ideas, and we thought of it's not a contest, but maybe a program that we may be able to run to make sure that, to spread the use of our tools across Kubernetes. So the idea would be CNCF puts out, it's already out. I linked it in the agenda. So the idea is contributors that want to, so right now it's very vague because we're still finalizing the details, but the idea would be contributors sign up. Then I'm gonna share this more widely in the techs and TLs in the chairs and TLs call later today. But the idea would be, if you are a maintainer of one of the smaller Kubernetes projects and want to improve the security posture by generating SBOMs, running our tester, whatever, you express interest, and the idea would be us as SIG release put out some simple, clear instructions like, oh, this is how you generate provenance. This is how you release using the image promoter. This is how you create an SBOM, things like that. And if we have enough projects signing up and enough contributors signing up, then we put those instructions out. The only commitment from the project maintainers would be, please, we're going to guide the contributor to in their pull request to just make sure that you review it and approve it at some point. And if that happens, CNCF is going to produce some, I don't know, the idea is to have some special edition swag for them as a reward for helping them. And yeah, so I'm still having, so we had this idea, me together with the tag security, talked to some people in steering, also to some people in CNCF, all seem to agree. So we put out the webpage for people to sign up without any details today. We're having some meetings this week to finalize it. And if it works, the idea would be to have like a webinar on December 6th to explain the rules and then just let it run. It's still mostly under construction, but it's going well, and hopefully it's going to happen. We have already approval for the budget and support from CNCF. So if anybody wants to join and help organizing this, I would be more than welcome to have more hands on it. I'll share more on the SIG release channel as I know more. Oh, thanks. Thanks everybody. I'll start with a thread and maybe an issue. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for all the interest. Cool. I'll start with a thread on our channel, and then moving from there.
All right. We're out of time, but I think it's important to mention Jim's topic real quick. Jim, do you want to go over that real quick, and then we can handle the rest of it async and Slack?
Yeah, this could be less than a few minutes here. Hopefully I'm not adding too much tech debt or bike shedding, but I was looking for a quick and easy way to implement something other than SendGrid for folks who have Gmail email addresses. And so for the longest time, I couldn't figure out a way to securely do this. And the, I guess, biggest breakthrough here for that demo that I posted in Slack, and there's also an issue linked in the docs. The biggest breakthrough is just thinking that I could stash that client ID and secret into Google Secret Manager, and then allowing the release managers to pull it. So that way you don't need to put the client ID and secret in public source code. And we already trust release managers to have that elevated access to kind of pull that down. The one other caveat I'll say for folks who aren't familiar with OAuth applications and client ID and secrets is there's kind of a known flaw for desktop applications needing to embed the client ID and secrets into those applications. So it's not necessarily a terrible thing. If we had to commit that code public, it's not super secret by terms of the OAuth desktop app, but at the same time, we don't want to unnecessarily expose, things that folks could use to impersonate the Kubernetes community. So that's kind of the technical weeds. There's an open issue. Again, I don't want to bike shed on this. Hopefully it's something we can add into Corel, announce, and alleviate some of the pains we had with SendGrid while we evaluate something more robust for like bulk API sending.
Background for that, for anybody that hasn't cut a release in a while, is there are a few, more than one people that can no longer send messages through SendGrid for various reasons. And then we have to default to manually sending things, which is not the worst, but it's also pretty annoying. And then some people can't send to Kubernetes announce, which means we have to go fix the permissions for that. So it's just kind of a mess. And having a better automated solution would get us back to where we were before.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for the context there. Sorry, I jumped right into the deep end of it.
All right. Anything else? We can handle things asynchronously since we are past our time. Thanks to everybody for coming today. Thanks, Lori, for helping us to figure out how to better organize, and look forward to seeing Slack threads and some prioritization sessions for things in the weeks ahead.
Very good.
Good luck with the beta release, Jim and Mark and Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Cheers all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.